They came from Earth, bearing no weapons, only supplies, healing tools, and the universal symbol of peace sewn into every sleeve. The White Cross, the emblem known across star systems as the mark of the Interstellar Humanitarian Corps. They operated under no flag, served no agenda. Their duty was to life itself, whether it beat in a reptilian chest, a hive-born queen, or a shattered human body. When the war between the Torthac Dominion and the Virexi Confederation reached catastrophic levels, Earth offered its medics freely. No sides were taken. The moon of Zelthar became their staging ground, nestled in the no-man's zone between plasma-fueled conflict and political apathy. They arrived in full force, 200 doctors, trauma surgeons, bioengineers, and medtechs. Civilians, volunteers. They erected mobile hospitals in craters. They pulled screaming infants from collapsed tunnels. They reset dislocated limbs, cauterized blast wounds, and saved hundreds in the first week. The aliens marveled at their persistence. Even Torthac soldiers, infamous for their hatred of outsiders, reluctantly allowed the humans to treat their wounded. The medics asked for nothing. Not fuel, not food, just safe passage, just time. And then came the strike. An unprovoked, precision orbital barrage. No warnings, no comms, no survivors. In less than 90 seconds, the entire humanitarian zone on Zelthar was incinerated. Hospital domes collapsed inward. Medevac ships vaporized on the pad. Flames climbed in a vacuum, briefly and pointlessly, before flickering into cold silence. 178 human medics dead. Their remains, where recoverable, were fused to surgical tables or frozen in the act of shielding patients. It was not a crossfire. It was not an accident. It was extermination. The footage hit Earth like a funeral bell. At first, the Human Council remained restrained. Calm. They demanded a galactic inquiry, a war crime tribunal. They called upon the Treaty of Humanitarian Non-Aggression, signed by 312 species. Most of the assembly issued condolences. Empty words. The Torthac Dominion denied the attack, claimed it was a misfire during a skirmish with Virexi pirates. No apology. No reparations. Nothing. Then came the leak. A Torthac commander, drunk and arrogant, boasting during a private feast. We removed the parasites. Their healing was treason. Let the stars know what happens to meddlers. The video spread faster than light. Earth's population watched in silence. Streets emptied. News feeds went black. The faces of the 178, young, old, tired, smiling, were projected onto every skyline. Names were whispered like oaths. The Galactic Assembly did nothing. Diplomatic inertia set in. Legal loopholes emerged. Excuses were made. Petitions were ignored. That's when Earth changed. Not with bombs. Not with speeches. With a single classified order, Protocol Revenant, accessed by unanimous vote of the Earth Council. Authorized after 147 years of dormancy. A quiet, irreversible decision. Earth did not send ambassadors. Earth did not send diplomats. Earth sent the angels. They were not spoken of in polite circles, not documented in open archives. But in the farthest reaches of space, their legend endured. Veterans whispered their existence. Pirates swore they'd seen their drop ships vanish in a void. Soldiers of failing empires recalled black-armored shadows in silence and fury. No one had ever provoked their release. Until Zelthar. They didn't come for conquest. They didn't come for territory. They came for one reason: vengeance. Not revenge born of rage, but of balance. Earth did not believe in wrath as policy. But when its healers were burned alive, its answer was pure and unsparing. There would be no warnings this time. No negotiations. The White Cross had been trampled. Now, only the Dark Star remained. And across every human ship, a signal was transmitted. One line, repeated in every tongue, on every frequency: we offered aid. You gave us ashes. Prepare to reap your silence. They were born in silence, trained in shadows, and forged through grief. Officially, they didn't exist. No records, no birth certificates, no home. The Angels of Vengeance were Earth's final argument. Not soldiers in the traditional sense. Each was a product of loss, handpicked from the ruins of peace. Former medics who'd watched comrades die. Engineers whose families burned in orbital bombings. Veterans who had nothing left but discipline. They volunteered knowing there would be no return ticket, no public medals, no graves with names. They weren't here to be remembered. They were here to make others remember. The selection process was brutal. Minds stripped down to base instinct, rebuilt under neural firewalls. Their nervous systems rewired to sync with second-gen warframe suits, exoskeletons that responded faster than thought. Their identities were erased, replaced by call signs and code names. Their armor was matte black, signal-deafened, self-sustaining for weeks in deep space. No flags, no faces, only the red mark burned into the chest plate. A cross turned vertical, split by vengeance. The Tort hack mocked the rumors. They broadcast propaganda reels painting humanity as weak, hiding behind laws and treaties. They paraded their victory on Zelthar like a trophy, believing Earth incapable of true retaliation. They underestimated what restraint breeds. The first to die never saw it coming. Tort hack forward outposts along the Hyrate line went dark in perfect intervals, 18 minutes apart. No alarms, no survivors, only biometric residue, systems fried at the genetic level, and walls scrawled with recovered Earth pulsing. 178. The Angels didn't wage war. They performed execution. Every mission was calculated. They hacked gravity controls mid-deployment, forcing Tort hack carriers into atmospheric burns. They disabled life support on dreadnoughts, flooding command bridges with silent frost. They breached without breaching, slipping between sensor blinks, bypassing all known detection algorithms. Tort hack AI failed to track them. Naval fleets fired blindly into empty space. There was no broadcast, no announcement. The galaxy learned one name the hard way, whispered by frightened comms officers, encoded into escape pod distress signals. Angels of Vengeance. Tort hack elite began defecting. Mercenaries refused contracts involving human sectors. Insurance companies blacklisted any vessels traversing Earth-controlled corridors. Every Tort hack ship, no matter how remote, began broadcasting emergency beacons. We are non-combatant. We are not responsible for Zelthar. One colony attempted to resist. A weapons facility on Kalar Prime reported an incursion, followed by a catastrophic shutdown. The facility's AI core was later found impaled with a human surgical scalpel. Inside the charred ruins, investigators found a single intact slab. On it was etched an audio log looped on repeat. The final screams of Earth's medics from Zelthar. The Angels didn't take prisoners. They made examples, but they didn't touch civilian zones. They bypassed colonies, clinics, and trade hubs. The message was precise. We're not coming for your people. We're coming for those who cheered as ours died. The moral clarity of their actions disturbed even neutral observers. For every strike, they issued no justification, just evidence. Their targets weren't random. Each was tied to the Zelthar massacre. Planners, sponsors, profiteers. Justice delivered in silence. The Galactic Assembly grew restless. Some called for sanctions. Others demanded Earth withdraw the Angels. But Earth issued no statement. The Angels didn't belong to any government now. They were a truth, unleashed, indifferent to diplomacy. Every unmarked drop pod that fell onto Tort hack soil carried only one payload: consequence. In time, even the Tort hack began erasing their own past, destroying logs, silencing the generals responsible, offering names in hopes of appeasement. It didn't matter. The Angels already knew. They had every coordinate, every command chain. They didn't chase leads. They followed pre-written fates. And behind every action, the same invisible voice echoed, "You killed the healers. Now meet those who can't be healed." They struck with a rhythm that defied logic, methodical, synchronized, merciless. No planetary defense grid could predict them. No admiral could anticipate their pattern. The Angels moved like a plague without origin, spreading fear not by mass destruction, but by absolute precision. Every target eliminated had ties to the massacre. They didn't level cities, they erased the decision-makers. No missed shots, no unnecessary deaths. They didn't waste effort on symbols. They dismantled systems. Entire Torthack command fleets went silent mid-warp. Ships failed to reappear from transit corridors, their data streams ending abruptly. Search teams found only molecular ash. Surveillance recovered one image. Human-shaped silhouettes walking calmly through decompression chambers before disintegrating into digital static. The Torthack High Council declared full mobilization, diverting 28% of its empire's resources to track them. They caught nothing. Patrols deployed to defend key installations found only aftermaths, bloodless, wordless, undeniable. Still, the Angels never touched the innocent. Civilian relief convoys were allowed safe passage, even when escorted by Torthack military. Medical facilities remained untouched. Refugees reported witnessing shadowed figures bypassing entire towns, slipping through unguarded corridors, only to appear at military bunkers 5 cities away. The message was carved deeper. This wasn't chaos. This was human judgment, cold and absolute. Their strikes began targeting infrastructure used in the Zelthar operation. Resource vaults, fueling depots, war factories. These weren't explosions. These were clean shutdowns. Power grids, overloaded just long enough to disable defense systems. Entire facilities were locked from the inside before being incinerated. Human tech signatures were found embedded deep in system code. Unhackable, impossible to trace. A single symbol always remained intact, the Red Cross, scorched black. Rumors among Torthack soldiers turned to superstition. Units began abandoning posts. Some surrendered at the first sign of system glitches. High-ranking generals requested reassignment to remote colonies. Torthack society, built on pride and conquest, began cracking under fear of retribution from an enemy that never spoke. The war they thought they won was turning into a reckoning they couldn't quantify. And the Angels didn't slow. They escalated. On the mining world of Varnox, the Angels infiltrated a deep labor camp housing survivors from the Zelthar blast. Civilians, mutated, barely alive, used for biological testing. The camp's commanders were ejected into vacuum. No trial. The Angels remained on the surface for 3 hours, long enough to dismantle the entire biolab, extract the prisoners, and infect the facility's database with a virus that broadcast the war crimes to every Torthack news channel. That transmission couldn't be scrubbed. Every viewer, every family, every worker witnessed what their empire had hidden. The Varnox strike broke the illusion. Torthack leadership, in a last act of desperation, placed bounties on the Angels. They offered credits, immunity, entire systems in exchange for evidence of capture. What they received instead was silence. And then, a sudden live feed hacked into their military network. An orbital view of their prized dreadnought flagship. At its core, a single detonation lit the ship from within, breaking it apart into symmetrical debris. The video feed cut to static. No message followed. None was needed. Across the galaxy, neutrality shifted. Other species began issuing statements of solidarity with Earth's fallen medics. Former allies of the Torthack severed trade. The Galactic Assembly, once immobile, held an emergency vote to discuss the first war crime sentencing in over a century. For the first time, the Torthack Dominion sat alone. Their ambassadors were met with silence. Their pleas rejected. Justice, long dormant, had returned, and it wore a human face no one had seen. The campaign was never officially acknowledged by Earth. No names, no dates, no confirmations. But the message was universal. You could burn our banners. You could ignore our treaties. But the moment you target the helpless, the ones who offer aid while others fire weapons, you invite something far worse than war. You invite memory, the kind that does not forgive, the kind that does not stop. The Angels had no political motive, no ambition. Only a list, a cold, comprehensive list. And line by line, they worked through it. quietly, efficiently. And as they did, the galaxy learned something Earth never claimed but proved with every strike. When humanity chooses silence, is not peace. Is the calm before judgment. When the final name on the list was crossed out, there was no announcement, no declaration of victory. The angels vanished as they had arrived, without ceremony, without trace. What remained was the silence they had promised. Entire systems quieted, not from destruction, but from understanding. The Torthack Dominion, once a pillar of fear, now trembled in its halls. Its leaders replaced, its fleets dismantled, its propaganda dismantled by raw consequence. It wasn't a conquest. It was a correction, one that left no room for denial. Humanity returned to what it had always been, resilient, watchful, unwilling to be exploited again. On Earth, the faces of the 178 medics became eternal, not as martyrs, but as the line that should never have been crossed. Statues weren't built in their image. Instead, trauma wards, humanitarian ships, and planetary clinics bore their names. Every healer now carried the mark of their sacrifice, stitched into uniforms not as decoration, but as warning. Those who protect life are not to be touched. Across the galaxy, military doctrines were revised. Diplomatic channels shifted their tone when dealing with humans. The legend of the angels spread like myth, but always grounded in fact. The Assembly, slow and proud, could no longer afford to ignore Earth. Treaties were redrawn with real enforcement. Laws protecting non-combatants gained real teeth. For the first time in generations, war crimes held consequences not in future tribunals, but in the present tense. Other civilizations watched and remembered. Some feared humanity more than ever, not for its weapons, but for its clarity. Others respected it in a way treaties had never earned, because humanity didn't retaliate over pride, resources, or ideology. It responded when peace was violated at its most sacred point, when aid workers were slaughtered, when mercy was punished. The kind of retaliation could not be negotiated with. It could only be avoided through restraint. The angels were never recalled. There was no need. They had no command structure, no central control. They were bound not by orders, but by completion. And when it was done, they simply stopped. Some believed they returned to Earth. Others believed they dissolved into the void. There were no more strikes, no more messages. But every major power began allocating part of their strategic assessments to one unlisted variable. What if Earth sends them again? New generations grew up with the story, not as a tale of violence, but as a lesson in deterrence. Aid convoys now cross former war zones unchallenged. The symbol of the human medic became inviolable. Across hundreds of worlds, treaties bore a new clause. Protection of humanitarian personnel is non-negotiable. That clause wasn't inspired by law. It was carved by fear, forged in loss, and cemented by the certainty that somewhere the angels still watched. Even within Earth's ranks, their existence remained unspoken. No one claimed credit. No medals were awarded. Their armor, their tools, their identities, if preserved at all, were locked away beyond any official archive. All that remained were effects. And in the wake of those effects, an uneasy peace settled over the stars. The Torthack never recovered. Economically weakened, politically fragmented, they withdrew from galactic affairs. Their species survived, but their dominance died with their pride. Survivors of the Zelthar atrocity, those rescued or healed afterward, became ambassadors of caution. They told their children not about Torthack glory, but about the moment they realized mercy had its guardians. Silent ones, final ones. Humanity continued to offer help. Aid missions resumed. Medical ships returned to the field. But now, when they landed, there was always a ripple through the crowds. A recognition. Even the most hostile regions dared not raise weapons against them. Not because of Earth's armies, but because of those who never spoke, never showed their faces, and never missed. What began as a massacre became a doctrine. If you kill those who heal, you forfeit your right to mercy. That was the unspoken law now, not inscribed by diplomats, but enforced by those who had once been medics, once believed in treaties, and then became the embodiment of consequence. The stars remembered, not just the screams from Zelthar, but the silence that followed. And long after the last angel disappeared, that silence remained. Not empty, not passive, but heavy with promise. The kind that says, "Do not make us come back.